Teeth look good. Well shaved.
You could use a shave.
I know. I haven't shaved in a while. My hair grows so fast though, it's funny. It makes about 10% of the time. That's probably 10%. That's so annoying. I'm gonna work that first. Nice and slow. I'm just, oh, smoke floating the cider. Smoke. The fish. Bite. Fast. Smoke. Okay. Eats a great. Whoa, smoke. Sorry. Overreaction, but man, it gets me excited too. Welcome, I'm Josh Miller, we're in Pennsylvania. It's May, it's a beautiful day. We have had a lot of rain lately, which is nice for the fish. Makes it a little more challenging for some of the bigger rivers, and it changes how I fish technique-wise. Sometimes the way I want to fish isn't the way that may be the best for the fish. So I'm trying to always adapt, and that's what some of the stuff is we'll work through in this video. Fish this small area here, a lot of slower water. I'm gonna fish maybe some dry dropper. And I'm going to talk about why I like to fish lighter flies, even in dirty water. Honestly, why I like to fish light flies always, but especially in dirty water, in slow water too, when it's clear too as well, fishing light flies. So I'm just going to work through this. I have a lightweight dry dropper, and hopefully I catch some fish in here. So a little bit about myself. My name is Josh, I'm from Pennsylvania. And I love living in Pennsylvania because of all the opportunities for fly fishing, all the public water, the access. Beautiful. I'm a fishing guide. I don't like talking about myself. Just feels weird. But yeah, been fishing for a long time. Head coach of the youth team. Done a lot of cool stuff. Learned from the best anglers in PA, George Daniel, Pat Weiss, Team USA guys, just so many good anglers here and around the United States. I'm just so lucky and blessed. But all right, so this water here, I'm gonna start, it's pretty dirty, we have a little bit of color. Gonna work out, and I'm gonna walk slow, and I'm gonna fish a dry dropper. I have a lightweight fly. I'll switch between maybe 2.4, 2 mil, kind of rotating, but I wanna still fish a light fly. I don't wanna drag the bottom. I want bites to be obvious. I have a lightweight leader. It's a 2-piece leader. I have 0.14, about 10, 12 feet. That's my fishing section. And then my handling section is like 0.23. It's a little thicker. So the part you are managing doesn't break. It doesn't coil as much. That 0.14 and 1.2 and 1.6, it gets worn out quick. And when I'm fishing it, it's usually out my rod tip, so it's not wearing out as fast too. Okay, so with the casting, I love these casts. I love fishing this light leader. It's like just very joyful. It's minimal effort. Just watching that dry, managing my line, taking my time, enjoying the fishing. Slow on my hook set like always, of course. But how I'm casting is I'm moving my rod, very little movement. I'm tightly connected through my leader, through my fly. Oh my gosh, a fish just rose on my dry there. Actually, hold on 1 second here. Time. That was crazy. This little wild brown right there. The dangle. That was cool. Well, that one ain't gonna eat again, but okay. So I'm tightly connected through my dry, and the key to the cast, we call this a frisbee cast or a low angle cast. I'm gonna use my pointer finger on the side of the rod, try to encourage a level motion, minimal rotation. We have lots of trees. Any rotation, I'm gonna be in that tree really fast. With the key to this cast, the thumb on top almost seems to go to a rotation. With this cast, I want my finger on the side to minimize upward and just have a level cast. And I can do it with very little movement. I can do it at quite a distance with even adding a little haul, and you can fish it pretty far. That's why I like this lightweight leader. It's versatile. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So as my dry is floating back towards me, I'm keeping my leader downstream and the tippet downstream. If I slow the fly down unnaturally with the leader upstream, it might cause that fly to slow down a little bit, which might look good to the eye, but the nymph could quickly kick underneath, which could mess the fish, spook the fish, miss the bite. So when I'm fishing this, I want to try to encourage the leader downstream of the dry. Okay, dry on the water. Let me get reset here. We'll talk about something else in a moment with casting and management. We'll see if any fish bite in here. Okay, so fly lands the water. I'm trying to keep my leader downstream. There is a breeze. So it could be, if I lift too high, that fly will slow down, which looks good. See, with the big belly in the sighter, that upstream breeze will slow down your dry. Like I said, it looks good, but the nymph can kick underneath and you won't see the bite. So in this moment, there's a management or a rule I call the 6-inch rule, where from my dry, so my nymph's down here, from my dry, I want minimal 6 inches of tippet floating on the water. I'm not directly connected to the dry. That's one key aspect with this technique. We don't want to be directly connected to that dry because the wind or you or, you know, we want it to be moving freely. Okay, so 6-inch cast. I have at least 6 inches of tippet on the water, not too much, not too little, about 6 inches. I'm making sure I'm downstream. I set the hook, take my time. Best part, you enjoy it. You know, catch the fish. It's fun. All right, we just safely released that fish. I'm going to talk about the leader setup a little bit here. Once again, I have what I call the handling section. It's a little thicker. It's easier for us to manage. And look, it does get coily over time. And I have my fishing section, which is the thinner piece. Then here I have a piece of tippet connected directly to the sighter, a blood knot with a tag. The tag I don't want too long. If I'm fishing only one technique, the technique where it just is like in a sense an indicator, this tag I want to have shorter and shorter and shorter. Why I love, so switching mind thoughts here, why I love Euro nymphing or long line techniques or whatever you want to call this, Euro nymphing to me, long leader, weighted flies, split shot, non-weighted flies, but just having a long leader with sighter, I can fish it lots of ways. Dry dropper, sighter on the water, sighter off the water. But this technique, so three techniques, but this one, dry dropper, there is so much depth to this technique alone. We fish different things called the Y and the hinge and all these other things, but when you're fishing off of a tag, it makes a lot more things possible. So fishing your dry off a tag is important. So that's why we're doing that. When we're fishing this indicator method, we want it slightly shorter so there's less chance of disconnect through this whole thing. Second, we have a heavier piece of lighter piece of tippet, so heavier tippet here, and then one lesser for my nymph. So if I do snag or break, hopefully I lose this nymph. For my nymph, I have a size, it's on a fulling mill, size 20 waltz worm style fly with a silver bead. Water has a little color. My confidence right now is to start with a silver bead and maybe have the fish likely move a little bit more to see that a little more flash, hopefully. So I'm going to continue to fish here. So a little management tools. Whenever I am casting or I just released a fish, we get line wrap, we get tangles. I try, not myself, but when I'm teaching, I try to have my angler go from this position here. I call this home base. This is home base. It's a set distance. So my rod's 10 foot 9 inches minus 10 inches, 12 inches. So it's about 10 foot of leader. So the second I take this, I have 10 foot of leader out. So what I try to do is create constants. One strip. Now I know exactly how far I am. I hook a fish and land it. To land my fish, maybe I need one rotation and that fish is at the appropriate amount of line out. A lot of people reel too much or too little and they can't land the fish. Okay, so I move locations, I'm fishing a new spot, I catch a fish, I go back to home base, pull my line out, I fish one strip. You get used to that distance, you're not overcasting your spot. You know how far your fly is going to go. Then you get good at that, and the technique allows, your angling ability allows, now you do 2 strips, now you do 3 strips. If I'm tight lining, maybe I'm doing 1 strip. If I'm floating the sighter, maybe I'm doing 2 or 3 or 4. But if you have those constants, you can start being able to control things, controlling your cast and distance and things a lot better. Second aspect of that is I have a lot of anglers, we get to the spot, they get excited or their other things kick into play and I see just, and then they have all this line here. What I want to encourage, I have a little breeze, the conditions make things a little bit difficult for management. So what I want to encourage is consistency. So what I'm going to do is go from home base back here and I'm going to do 3 strips. 1, 2, 3. So I know approximately how far I'm fishing. It's constant, and as I move up the river, I'll move steps of 2-3 feet. So I'm fishing 2-3 feet more. I'm not pulling or lessening line. It's the same. It's constant. Next thing I want my anglers to do in this moment is to cast from the reel because of line management and tangles and actually a lot of reasons, but what I mean by casting from the reel is you're tightly connected here. There's not just a random belly. When you have this random belly, it's harder to grab. A cool trick I found, I was guiding an older gentleman a couple weeks ago and I noticed he had a lot of line and he had trouble finding it. So a cool trick I figured out in the moment, which sometimes I naturally do, is when you fish from the reel, okay, so you understand this is from the reel, not this, okay? So when you fish from the reel, I use this hand and I slide it on the back part of my hand and it will go to that spot every time. I can literally, cast from my reel, make a cast, close my eyes, and I can slide it on that and it's gonna grab that spot. So it's just a quick way, so you're not looking down. I make my cast, I'm looking away, I know where that should be, I slide right into that position and I'm managing my line quickly, okay? I think that's really important. You have trees, midway through my drift, if I'm not doing any line management, my rod's too high, it's not a great hook setting angle, and in different smaller streams, different hazards, different conditions, we need sometimes our rod really low. We have wind or whatever. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go from home base. I'm moving to my location. 1 management with tangles. Keep it there. I slide my finger this way so it allows the line more distance from the rod so I won't get as tangled as easily. I come to my location. Let's pretend I'm moving. Okay, pull it off. I do 1, 2, 3. I try to be somewhat consistent with that. Everyone understands now. I put my fly there. I'm casting tightly from my reel. And now my management is really easy. I'm right on it. I'm ready to go. The fish eats. My rod is low. I am what I consider recoiled in quick reaction to be able to set quickly. So I like the line management called the vector. This is what we're doing here. There's many ways, a short strip, long strip, figure 8. They all work and they're all good. In this scenario here, I want just something smooth and that has a lot of line capacity to pick up. I don't know the best way to describe this, so bear with me. I use 1 finger, something, as a pulley. So what that means is the line slides through this. This is a fixed position, and this is a pulley. So when I when I'm sliding here, it's multiplying the line. What I mean by that is, it's pulling 2 pieces of line. So if my wingspan's, I'm about 5 foot tall, I'm really short. So if I pulled 5 foot of line, I'm actually pulling 10 foot. You can see it with how far my fly will move. So my fly's hanging there. I can move that almost to the rod tip. Versus if I have this line, if I'm not fishing from a tight reel, and I just grab the line and pull 5 feet, I'm only pulling 5 feet because this is my fixed position now. And it's hard for me to explain it. It's like a mechanical advantage. I learned it in like 5th grade where you have like a heavy item and you have 2 pulleys and it like makes it lighter to lift or something. I don't remember, but so okay. So I'll show how I'm doing this. Fishing from a tight position, and the vector is something that maybe it was Paul Bork or US Youth. I learned from them a long time ago. Not my thing, but something is really, really important to do. Okay, so we got a little breeze. We need to cast at a little bit of a distance, so I'm going to keep my rod low to the water. I'm tight to my reel. Small movement, cast right into my what we call vector, and I'm ready and loaded. If that fish eats, Hopefully I don't miss him. Okay, go into another cast so I can change my casting angle. If I wait every time in the back, because the leader is light, the fly is going to go to the same location pretty much. So what I'll have my anglers do is rotate their hips, pulling the fly this way, reset their casting angle, and now it's going to go across a little bit. Not too tightly connected to that dry, just letting it flow through there. Whoa, he's over the waterfall. He came back, thank goodness. Try to do is push my arm way forward, when the fish is directly upstream, then I lift, try to slide him back to me with that movement. Looks easier than it is. Sometimes that's tough to do. Management thing, I don't lift the fish out of the water in the net, keep them wet, grab my tippet here, so I have a little bit of control, always have wet hands, anything touching the fish should be wet. These fish I flip upside down, kind of get a little disoriented, be gentle and put them back. After releasing that fish, I'm back to home base just for consistency. Just try to be consistent. I know how much momentum in my cast, I know where it's gonna land. Once I start getting into structured areas or any obstacles, I have accuracy. So one tip I really wanna stress, and I really do with our students, is picking a spot where you're casting to. Even in this water, like, there is some seams in here. I can't tell depth, I can't see anything, the water's pretty dirty, but there's still seams and there's still spots you should be aiming for. I want my anglers to try to have that consistency and the accuracy for when it might matter more, and it does matter, it matters always, but have those mechanics down to be able to execute when it's really important. Next thing, what I like is this low angle cast. So we're fishing a light fly. I really believe in the fly falling and fishing a lightweight fly. It's really important to me. I don't want the fly just to go whoop, right to depth. I want to fall nice and slow. And the longer I get between my dry and my nymph, the more chance of disconnect. But when you cast certain ways, I think that low angle cast helps, where the fly and nymph will land connected, versus an arcing cast where the fly might land with the nymph, similar to a tuck cast that way, which is good for getting depth fast. But with a light fly, it might give you a disconnect for a little while where you might miss your take. So in second, with this cast, what I'm trying to do with my accuracy, my body position, especially, is land my fly and my nymph in the same line, in the same seam, even in this water. Because if I cast across, you know, it might take a minute for that dry to re-pull and make everything in line. Fishing in line, being in line, I call it tracking. The way that a bug is naturally going to float through the river, tracking. So I'm always thinking about that. How do I track my nymph? How do I track my nymph on as long as possible? And dry dropper on the Euro setup really helps that. So does floating the sighter. Tight lining with a light leader gives you a little distance too, but right when you're tightly connected, you have more chance of it drawing towards you in different angles. Or when you have the dry on the surface, it acts as like a rudder, an anchor, and it allows you maybe a little more distance, and also allows that fly to sink and then suspend at a certain depth. I mean, this water's pretty slow. Tight lining in this would be a little bit more difficult, even floating the sighter, and that's why, for me, dry dropper is what I would at least start with here. Maybe those other techniques will catch fish. They might be even great, but this is what I would start with in this type of water. Let's see if we get one more in here. The 3 strips, consistency, my cast. I'm gonna put a little haul in this one and move my rod very little. Ooh, man, that one ate it fast. really quick. Okay. Very little movement, finger on the side, level cast. If you watch, the leader and the fly actually stay underneath the rod tip. So if I have a branch this high, I can get that underneath stuff. I can even cast it this close to the water and still get distance. So that breeze is trying to lift me, so I'm gonna, oh, there's a bite. Trying to keep that leader downstream. Keep that leader downstream of that fly. So right here, when I have 3 strips of line out, right here is difficult management point. This is when you grab your line, vector, do a short cast down, and then right here, use the water tension to reload all that slack. That's a really important tip for being quick. Afternoon. How are you today?
I'm here.
What a beautiful day, isn't it?
Hey, I'm retired. I'm out every day.
Oh, I love it. Great day to be outside. Have a good day. So before I move, I made a few casts there. I know there should be another fish or two. I am going to add just a little depth. So to add depth, unfortunately, this does not move easily. It actually doesn't move at all. As an indicator, I have to take my fly off and then add tippet underneath. So I added like maybe about a foot of tippet. We'll try there for a little bit. That will be my next adjustment before changing flies or moving locations. Just a little depth. Okay, let's see. We'll move down a little bit. Let's see if they're down in here. So with this, I only have 3 strips of line because I'm not fishing nearly as far. There we go. So I just moved down a little bit, and the fish that so I'm always learning from the fish. My best friend Joe is a great guide with me. He's a good dude. He might be here, I don't know, somewhere. But he is, him and I love to teach and talk about, I've heard George say it, I've heard a lot of people say it, but we like try to listen to the fish. Like, you know, we believe in our flies, we believe in our techniques, we have to be changing techniques all the time, but we want to feed them how, well, sometimes I like to just fish the way I like to fish, and that's not the way the fish want to fly, but that's here nor there. But we try to, you know, listen to the fish. My bites are down here. I just moved down. And that, because of that, I'm not going to fish as far. You know, my bites are here. Now I'm only going to do 2 strips of line. Fish a little closer. Try to make sure I'm landing in a line. Make sure I get maybe slightly slower, naturally slower drifts. Just those little management things. Learn from the fish, where they're eating, how they eat. If it's winter time and you catch, you know, learn from your bites. One of our best students, and man, I love this aspect. He literally doesn't like worry about how many fish he lands. He worries about how many bites he identifies. Like, that to me is, as a guide, as an instructor, as someone who, the point is to catch fish. But if you have that mindset, I think you're going to go so far. Believing you're getting bites, accounting for your bites, accounting that you missed a fish. Not like, oh, I missed a fish, more like, everything's right. It's just between you and the fish now. It's your speed. It's a little bit of tweaking to be able to put that fish from the fly to the net. You know, I call that conversion. How do you convert that? It might be a weight, it might be adjusting your connection, you know, dry dropper versus floating the slider versus tightlining. All those things might give you better conversion. But learning from the bites and believing in that they are bites is so important. And the fish eat so fast. See if there's one more in here. Sometimes it'll be real close right before it goes over the waterfall. It's a nice little cushion right there. there's a slower drift. That's what I'm looking for. To find one of those seams that's just a little slower. You know, I don't think I'm always at exactly the right depth, because there is, on the bottom, there's going to be ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows, there's ridges, there's valleys, there's nooks, there's crannies. So if I can't get in every little cranny, now I'm going to try to, the only thing that I like to do, that I feel like I can do, is find that slow seam, manage my stuff as best I can, to try to slow my drift down enough to encourage that fish to potentially move up and eat my nymph. And what that will do too is possibly increase the bite detection, because they'll move down a lot of times after they eat. I'm fishing just slightly higher, not dragging the bottom, not hitting the bottom. But if I can't get to the fish's face, my fly, having a flashy bead, a bigger fly, might encourage the fish to move out of their spot, and trying to manage things, get a slower drift, fishing more upstream, fishing with less tippet on the water, learning how to land in a line, tracking in a line. All those things will help you to slow your drift down and get a nice slow drift. And sometimes I don't know how to catch anymore, so let's go to a different spot. So a spot like this, we just did some dry dropper upstream, and I look at this and I want to encourage anglers that there's other ways. When you look at fast water, it's not just tight lining, even though I consider this tight lining. What I'm going to try to do here is fish dry dropper in even this fast stuff. I mean, the water's high, it's in the you know, there should be a lot of fish, but they're really stuck under that fast water, and it's hard to drift. For me, it's about impossible in that really fast stuff. We're going to fish this seam here, and it looks good for fishing a technique called the Y. So we have our dry on a tag. We're going to get a little bit of wax and put it on this here. Okay, the Y. So we're going to fish this dry on the surface, more of like an anchor that helps so the wind doesn't lift. It helps keep it tracking. Man, tracking is one of the most important things to me. If I dropped a nymph or a nymph got dislodged, how does that nymph float past that fish? That fish lives in that spot its entire life, or lives in the stream. It knows how things roll past. I really believe that. I think tracking is one of the most important. Having connection to identify your bite, because I think fish eat a lot more stuff than we realize, and having bite detection, connection, and make sure that nymph tracks as best as it can. So I might never be able to track the exact way it does, but with tension being very tight, having my line downstream, having the dry on the surface might help, slack might help. So having techniques on both ways and rotating through, you know, you do 10 drifts with one thing, you do something with the other, and you're like, oh, I caught one. Maybe your tracking was different, maybe it sunk different, but you know, just understanding different techniques allow or hinder different things we're after. All right, so I'm gonna work in here, walking close. I'm going to evaluate and assess my obstacles. I'm going to fish. Whoa, the water's pretty fast, so I'm going to try to be right over my rod tip. I'm going to fish in that little seam there. Consistency. Upstream, we did 2 and 3 strips. This is a close range technique. Going to home base, doing 1 strip. Close, consistent. Okay. Sure everything's ready. Focus on my target. Being intentional with my body. Being intentional with how I wade. Being intentional with my step. Being intentional with just something simple like getting the fly downstream. Or setting the hook. Man, soft sets, weak sets, sometimes often create tangles. So being intentional with what we do. So I'm intentionally identifying my spot. I'm going to make a cast. I'm going to try to fish the Y here. The Y is something I'm pretty sure Lauren Williams came up with. There's the fish. A long time ago, and I think Lauren at that time was from New York. What an awesome angler on Team USA. Thank you, Lauren, for coming up with some cool things. Here's a little brown. Woo! What I believe the Y does is it just encourages tracking. It helps. You can change your angle of how your fly comes through the water with more tension or more speed by changing how high or low your rod is. Just like sighter. You know, the angles of your sighter, you can do the same thing with the Y, with how open or closed the Y is. See, there's another fish in there. Let's go back to home base. Let's make things consistent. Here, say I'm just doing it for video purpose, but it's so important. One strip, now it's the exact same. So it's gonna go in the same place unless now I move. My feet is pulling line out. That's what I want people to understand. I want them to move versus do this, especially in little spots like this, okay? Make my cast, high rod angle, get down into that Y, nice control, bite, fast, smoke. Okay, one more thing that's incredibly crucial I want to explain. Every time you tie your fly on, I'm coming over you here, Dom. Every time you tie your fly on, I want my angler to see how slow or fast it sinks. In this water, I want to match that speed. I want to land connected, land tight with my fly, and then almost lower my fly down in the water so it's connected the whole time. It'll help us to identify the bite, it'll help for tracking, it'll help for it keeping all in the same line. At least start there, try. Let's see if there's one more fish in here. Okay, body in position, toes are angled upstream, fishing at an upstream angle. Same gentle cast, but high angle. Sometimes that wax gets a little sticky. Oh man, that was dangerous. Sometimes that wax gets a little sticky. I'm gonna take a little bit off. And when you're fishing, it gets stuck together, and I want that Y to be nice and open. Got a little breeze. I'm gonna wait a split second. On breezy days, if it's just 20 miles an hour all day, it is what it is. When it comes and goes, if I'm in a likely spot, I'd rather make one good drift and good cast. I believe sometimes a drift that fluctuates, and sometimes we can't help it, can spook fish too. So, and sometimes when there's a breeze, I just take my time for a second, make a cast. There we go, into the Y right there. Oh man, they're fast. Quick bites. There again. Whoop. Sorry, buddy. Having that Y and being able to fish, control different angles, it's just a cool variable that we have with tight lining. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I think I catch another one at the top too, to be honest. Okay. Yeah. So when I go, you see a few of the drifts, I'll actually have the dry off the water called the hinge. Sometimes I'll be fishing that dry off, and then I'll put it back on and up and forth to be able to fish over top of rocks. There's a couple ridges in there, so I'll fish over top of those rocks sometimes by elevating my rod tip and just fishing the dry off the water, just like you're tight lining. And then if I get into something that's a little deeper, then I'll go to the Y and I'll slow down a little bit, little depth. Fish nice and slow. Okay, move a little bit. There's a ridge, I'll hinge and then right down to the Y. But the purpose of this is I want anglers to see that, there's other things than just a nymph or two nymphs. They can fish dry dropper, and it can be very, very beneficial in even pocket water. All right, we're a little skinnier up here. Watch my casting angle. Going to fish just the hinge. Dry off the water. Okay. Try again. And sometimes that's all there is in there. Let's keep going, Dom. Let's go find another fish. Okay, so I am now on a little slightly clear stream. It's still really high, but it's beautiful looking. And we're gonna work this little bit of water here. So I took a nice wide berth when I walked around. So I always try to give myself any advantage, and one advantage for me is not spooking the fish. I think a lesser spooked fish will eat more wide range of technique or variance in how good your drift even is. So walking down the bank isn't the best option. Fish are looking upstream, walk around, take our time. So what I'm gonna try to do here is float the cider a little bit and alternate between floating the cider and tight lining. So that might allow a little bit more slack, so the fly might be able to roll along the bottom or ebb and flow with the, there's some like chunky rocks and little ridges and valleys, and then I'm gonna tight line, maybe have a little more control, a little bite detection at a different degree, but this will work through. So going back to home base, same leader I was fishing earlier. I'm gonna do one strip here at first and just kind of feel it out. I look for all my obstacles, anything that might hinder my casts, drifts, and sets. And I'm gonna start right. I can identify a little slow seam right in the middle. I'm gonna work that first, nice and slow. I'm just, oh, smoke, floating the cider. Watch if that cider moves or does anything that could be a bite. So we'll talk about the bites in a minute after I get this guy handled up here. There we go. Let me take care of this. Okay. So floating the cider, what I'm looking for, like bite detection wise, the cider will be floating, and what I'm looking for is that cider to potentially go upstream. Sometimes if my tippet isn't directly connected straight, and that's okay, the cider might move sideways. It might go downstream. It might, it's floating, and my nymph's over here, my cider's over here, something makes connection to that, it might slide sideways. So I'm looking for deviations in that cider. It could be anything, but I'm looking for anything that looks like it made connection with that nymph. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. The difference between the three techniques we're doing, Euro nymphing, cider on the water, floating the cider, dry dropper, and then all the aspects of that, and then tight lining or cider off the water, has different degrees of difficulty, different degrees of bite detection ability. I think dry dropper is nice, the dry goes under. It's very obvious, where this is a little bit more, I don't want to say artistic, but more, it's more difficult to identify those bites. Anglers say like, how do I catch a lot, or like, how do I start getting good at it? Sometimes it's going to a place that's easier and getting that confidence in what those potentially soft or really light or hard to identify bites could be. So we're gonna float the cider again. I'm back to home base. Remember, I'm doing this for video purposes, just making it consistent. I'm setting up my cast, identifying my target, doing a gentle cast, watching that cider go through, and watch for any deviation or anything that could look like a bite. Let me focus here for a second. And like, that's the key, oh, there's a bite. This stuff is like, I made a joke earlier today, my eyes are like burning because I'm not even blinking. Like, you have to be so hyper focused on your cast, your set, your all these mechanics and motions, and it takes time. And that's why I like fly fishing. That's one aspect that makes me really enjoy this sport, because my brain's super engaged. A lot of, I think, the movements and mechanics I'm doing post cast, after the cast, line things it's almost second nature, and I can focus on sometimes just getting that bite. Or if I'm outside of my comfort zone with my technique, or the water's a little high and I'm doing something that I'm not is good technique wise, then maybe I'm missing that bite because I'm focusing on something else. So repetitions, doing what you're comfortable with. All that is important. So right now, floating the cider, just watching for any, oh, smoke. When I'm getting bites, and I know there's not tons of fish in here, but a few, if I really do want to potentially catch that fish, I'd rather not cast back immediately. I'd rather let that fish forget about my nymph, go back to his natural spot, hopeful that it eats a bug passing by and just is happy again, versus just casting right on top of that fish again. I like to give it a moment. I'll cast over here a sec, see if there's any little guys in this stuff. Okay, nothing. Once in a while, check your fly for any slime. Although there's not much in this stream that'll do that, but it's good to check. Okay, let's see if he eats. Man, and when I know where there's a fish at, I try to be very coiled up and ready to strike when he eats. Like, right, whoa, smoke. Sorry, overreaction, but man, it gets me excited too. I love it. Now, maybe that was the same fish, maybe not, I don't know. But either way, it's fun. So same leader as before, I have that light piece, and it's floating well enough. If I was gonna just float the sighter all day, maybe I would have a little heavier sighter on there, but I like this as an all-around because those 3 techniques, I feel like I could do them, maybe not the best of the best, but I can do all 3 techniques when I would like to, or when the water feels like it deserves it, or, you know, so when do I dry dropper? When do I float the sighter? When do I tightline? Personally, I like some of those techniques more than the other, but water, where the fish are, dictate what I think will be better or more, not efficient, maybe more easier to identify the bites. Like I said earlier, the dry dropper goes down, less variables. Angler ability helps me when I'm guiding to discern which one to go from in conditions like wind. If it's heavy wind versus sunshine, I might need to fish a little further, versus right now I can get really close, there's no wind, it's like perfect. I can almost do any of the techniques here and feel like I can catch the fish. So in that case, I'm going to float in the sighter because this is what I like the most. Okay, what I'm trying to do is fish straighter upstream, or at a decent upstream angle of my sighter. Okay, so I'm kind of straight upstream. I'm going to vary how the fly and the leader enter the water or hit the water. Sometimes I'll have my sighter stay in the air a little longer. Sometimes I want them to land simultaneously, which will allow more slack or less slack, allow the fly to sink longer or slow down. And a lot of this stuff, to be honest, we figured out, but Pat Weiss, man, he's, to me, the master of this stuff. He's so good. He's such an amazing angler, amazing human. A lot of the stuff he's taught me, taught us, I've seen him do, and you know, we just run with it and we love it. So just kudos to Pat for being amazing. Let's see if there's one, should be right in here. Come on, there's gotta be another fish in here. And like what, ooh, smoked that one. And once I do so many drifts, you know, with alternating my casts, how the fly lands, we could put mends. We could do different mends in the leader. The lighter the leader, the harder it is to mend. But then, you know, with this setup, I can change my cast a little bit, and I can just tightline through too. So I could do, you know, a lot of things quickly and be able to change without changing flies and setup. You know, really the point of this video and the point of what I want to get across to anglers is not just tightlining with a tightlining setup. We can dry dropper, float the sighter, and do tightline techniques all with one nice leader, one, you know, the same cast and mechanics, and catch fish and enjoy and be able to overcome those obstacles like wind and distance and, you know, just a lot of stuff. All right, I'm not going to get too greedy, maybe catch one more and we'll keep moving. So I'm going to fish that farther seam. I'm going to go back to floating the sighter first. So what I'm going to do is move my body slightly this way so I don't have to fish across current. We have many different current seams. We have fast, a little slow pieces where I think I caught maybe one here. There's another little kind of slow piece right there. The more I stare at water and I stare at what's going on, the more I notice little variations and things. Gordon Vaderpool from North Carolina, an amazing coach of the US youth team, amazing angler, really pulled me back one time and helped me to really identify these little seams. If I'm, one of my major components for me personally, what I like, what makes me, just what drives me to, not drives, but the thing that I'm after very often is getting a slow drift, allowing my fly time to get down to where the fish could be, or, you know, being, even if I'm not getting down to where the fish are, slowing down enough where they'll come up and eat my fly. And one way to do that is, even in this, identify those tiny little slow pieces. Always start there. I'll fish those first, then I'll go to the fast water. Sometimes you'll catch fish in all of it, sometimes none of it, sometimes just in those slow things. So knowing that's important, but I'll start there first. Okay, right down the center here. Let's float the sighter first, see if it already eats. Nothing. Okay, one or two more casts. Good, that should be eat right there. Throw a little mend, slow it down, and go into tight lining if I need to. Just fishing single fly, real lightweight. Okay, so remember, back with the mechanics of casting, a lot of these casts I'm doing my finger on the side. I'm fishing underneath the rod. Sometimes it's a movement of like a J at the end, so I can manipulate the sighter at different ways. But I'm going back and forth between floating the slider and tight lining. Some, I might be able to slow the technique down with one more than the other. I might start off floating the slider at the beginning, and that sometimes will get everything in a line, and then come tight to my fly with its slider off the water techniques. But I'm just going back and forth to present the fly to the fish in different ways. I believe that over fly pattern, at least at first. I like to try to manipulate my drifts, slow down my drifts, speed up my drifts, just change the way the fly comes to the fish, or present it different ways. And that's why I'm going back and forth between floating the slider and tight lining. And sometimes I feel like floating the slider, I'm not able to get them all. Sometimes tight lining, I'm not able to get them all. I go back and forth because truthfully, sometimes I don't know exactly why it's doing something different. But I alternate back and forth, and I enjoy doing it. So let's see if there's one more in here. Maybe on this far side. Okay, float the slider. And I might go gently into tight lining here with a little belly. Okay. It is a little bit difficult to see. The slider kind of gets lost in that glare. There we go. And I'm going to tight line this one a little further distance. That one ate it pretty good. Move up one step. There we go. I'll say that should be a fish. Man, that was about a day late on that hook set. Thank you for holding on to it for a while there, little buddy. Okay, well, let's call it there. That's enough fish. Leave some for the next angler.